What is going on? Happy Thursday night to all of you watching, listening to this program. As always, it is very much appreciated. And as always, I have the first question of the night for you. What you drinking? Here's what I'm drinking. One of the best named craft beers ever. Sexual chocolate. I am drinking a sexual chocolate stout from Crew Brew Brewery. Tough to say. Crew Brew Brewery in Raynham, Mass. It is a 6.2 ABV. So the sexual chocolate, you can see the can right there. Great stuff with lips, couple teeth. So sexual chocolate stout, 6.2 alcohol per volume. Crew Brew Brewery in Raynham, Mass. This is how it looks. It looks like a chocolate stout. Huh? Looks dark. It is dark. Cheers to all of you. Again, I appreciate every single one of you. Chris Chapman jumps in. Hey, y'all. My wife and I having a glass of Merlot. I've talked about wine on this show before. Not the biggest wine guy. Don't drink a lot of wine at all. But did go to Napa with Kelly a couple of years back. And we need to start drinking that wine because we spent too much money on it. But I hope you enjoy your Merlot tonight. Chris, Georgie Pats jumps in, says, that boy good. I don't know who he's talking about. Is he talking about me? Is he talking about the sexual chocolate beer? I don't know. But thank you, Georgie, for checking in. Ryan Lee says, even I'm drinking Alska Norse Cider. Interesting. I've got to go back to these episodes and write down all of these beers and everything you guys are drinking. Rick B5005 drinking a double IPA from Widowmaker. I've not been to Widowmaker yet, but my buddy Josh Deering, who works at Idle Hands, used to work with me on the Jones Show on 98.5 The Sports Hub when I worked nights. Deering works there, and he told me about Widowmaker. I'm still supposed to go to Widowmaker with Josh at some point. Terry, well, after Nick's cool drink, my Diet Pepsi is even more boring. Don't worry about it. Be you, Terry, be you. All right, let's jump into the football. Let's start with story number 5, and that is the fact that the Cleveland Browns will not bench Deshaun Watson. Even though Deshaun Watson has been awful this year, they still will not bench him. And Kevin Stefanski this week, speaking with the media, says that Watson gives the Browns the best chance to win. Really? Deshaun Watson gives you the best chance to win? There was a fantastic article written by Austin Gale in The Ringer this week talking about Deshaun Watson and some of his worst stats, some of the worst stats that you could possibly imagine a quarterback having and this Browns offense having. Here's the first stat. The Browns scored their only touchdown last week when safety Rodney McLeod Jr. scored he scooped up a blocked field goal, returned it 50 yards to the end zone. It was McLeod's second touchdown this season. Deshaun Watson has contributed to as many touchdowns over the past 3 games as a 34-year-old veteran safety. Brutal. Watson has taken a league-high 31 sacks, 11 more than any other quarterback. He has the 4th highest pressure-to-sack ratio and the 5th highest time to throw on all dropbacks, according to Pro Football Focus. Cleveland has converted on just 19% of its third down attempts. Can you imagine that? This Browns offense with Watson as the quarterback has converted only 19% of its third downs. That's outrageous. Since 2007, 566 quarterbacks have thrown at least 100 passes in the first 6 games of their respective seasons. By first downs per pass attempt, Bo Nix's 2024 season tied for 564th. Deshaun Watson's 2024 season is 566th. Dead ass last. And one more for you. Watson is currently ranked by ESPN's QBR metric at 21.5. The scale is 0 to 100. 0 to 100. and Watson's QBR is 21.5. For comparison, he had a QBR last season of 43.7 before he was hurt. His career high QBR was as a rookie in Houston, which was 83.7. To put his QBR rating right now in context, he's currently worse than Blaine Gabbert in 2011 and is the worst since Jimmy Clausen in 2010. Statistically, analytically, Deshaun Watson has been one of the worst quarterbacks in football in recent memory. He's been arguably the worst quarterback in football this year, but yet Kevin Stefanski is standing up there at the podium telling us, telling you, telling everybody, hey, look, Deshaun Watson still gives us the best chance to win football games. I find that very hard to imagine. You know what I think's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. This is about Jimmy Haslam. This is about Browns ownership. This is the fact that the Browns invested as much as they did in Watson, financially and draft pick-wise. This will go down as the worst trade in football history. And if it's not the worst trade, it is absolutely one of the top 2 or 3 worst trades we've ever seen. Watson has done nothing for the Cleveland Browns. He's been absolutely horrendous. And the fact that the Browns had to give up picks to bring him to town and then give him $230, $240 million guaranteed, this is an absolute joke. In the ownership group, they have egg on their face. And so Kevin Stefanski has to go out there to the media. He's going to put a smile on his face, and he's going to tell us that Watson gives them the best chance to win. The only reason that Watson is still playing for this football team is because the ownership doesn't want to look bad. They don't want to give up on that deal. They don't want to give up on the fact that they gave more than, $230 million of guaranteed money to this guy during the allegations at the time. I mean, it is just one of the worst decisions you will ever see from a football operation. And the coaching staff, they're taking the bullets. I mean, imagine how the Browns feel. How can those guys feel right now? You still have Deshaun Watson starting, even though he's been the worst quarterback in football. They just traded Amari Cooper this week, waving the white flag pretty much. We'll talk about Cooper a little bit more later. And the Browns deserve everything they get. Everything they get, they deserve. Because they decided to sell their soul to bring Deshaun Watson into that organization. And this is what you get. A bad quarterback. You went through awful, awful PR. Fans weren't happy. I don't know who was happy. And you decided to do what you did to bring him in, and he's been terrible. So congratulations. Anonymous, $10 super chat. Thank you for the 10, Anonymous. Bench him. Cut your losses. They should. I'm telling you, if this was up to the coaching staff, there's no way on God's green earth they would be throwing Watson out there. There's just no chance, because there's no argument that guy actually makes you better in any way as a football team. There's just no argument for that. He does not make you better. He doesn't give you a better chance to win. It's just not true. But this is what happens when ownership goes all in, makes a terrible deal, gives a ton of money away, guaranteed to a guy who's already a question mark because of his injury history, and he's going through those allegations at the time. This is what happens. And now the ownership is trying to cover their ass, and they're hoping that somehow, some way, Deshaun Watson turns things around. I don't think it's going to happen. Dude looks washed. The team knows it. Ownership is afraid to admit it. All right, let's get to story number 4. Let's talk about good old Jerry Jones. And while we're talking about Jerry Jones, don't forget, tell me what you're drinking tonight. I am drinking a sexual chocolate, which, by the way, if anybody has seen Coming to America, and I hope many of you have seen that movie because it is genius. Sexual chocolate absolutely is a derivative of that movie. It's the band, right? It's the band in Coming to America. Sexual chocolate. Sexual chocolate, everybody. Let's hear it for Sexual Chocolate. One of the best movies ever. One of the best characters ever. And it's a really good beer. Chocolate stout. Let me know what you're drinking. All right, let's get to Jerry Jones, because Dallas is seemingly falling apart at the seams. Cowboys lost last week. They were humiliated at home against the Lions. They lost 47-9. I mean, that is just getting curb stomped. An embarrassing effort on both ends of the field, both sides of the football. And Jerry Jones comes out this week, and I'm not talking about his, back and forth on the radio the other day. I'm talking about Jerry Jones coming out this week and saying that he's standing by McCarthy. He is not considering getting rid of Mike McCarthy. And yet again, we see an owner who very likely made a bad decision standing by their decision because they're stubborn. They have gigantic egos. They are narcissistic. They don't ever want to say that they were wrong. And many people looked at this with Mike McCarthy walking into the final year of his contract saying, hey, Bill Belichick is out there. Mike Vrabel is out there. Why don't you go out and get a better coach? Well, we know why Jerry didn't go out and get a better coach. Because Jerry doesn't want to pay McCarthy to sit on his tuk-tuk. So Jerry Jones is telling everybody, I'm not considering getting rid of McCarthy because Jerry Jones wants to get every last drop of that contract money spent to use up that money. So you have a situation now in Dallas where it was awful last week. They're 3-3. They're 3 wins at Pittsburgh, one of the worst offenses in football. Damn good defense, but you beat Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh. You beat the Giants at the Giants, so Daniel Jones. And then you beat Cleveland to start the year at Cleveland. So think about the 3 quarterbacks that the Cowboys have beaten. The Cowboys have beaten Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, and Deshaun Watson. Those are their 3 wins. And the 3 wins, all 3 of those teams, what's the common denominator? You tell me. What's the common denominator between the Giants, the Browns, and the Steelers? Their offenses suck out loud. They are awful on that side of the ball. Absolutely brutal. All of those offenses stink. So those are the 3 wins that the Cowboys have. And the next 4 games for the Cowboys, no joke. If you look at the Cowboys' schedule, you'll see. I'll tell you, so you don't even have to look. You could just watch this show. Because the next 4 weeks, the Cowboys play at San Francisco. Then they play at Atlanta. Of course, Atlanta is leading the NFC South. Then they play against the Eagles in Dallas, so a division rival. And then they host Houston in the final 4 of those 4 games. So the next 4 games at San Francisco, at Atlanta, versus Philly, versus Houston. Dallas sitting at 3-3. You almost feel like if you finish at 2-2 over the next 4 weeks, that would be a quote-unquote win. The Cowboys, at best, could be 500 10 games through the season. They could be sitting at 5-5, and that could be the best case scenario for this team with a lame duck head coach and an owner who can't help himself but talk. And Dak Prescott's been brutal. Dak Prescott has been horrific. He signed that big-ass deal, and he has stunk. He's tied for the 2nd most interceptions in the league. He's 25th in passer rating. He's 16th in completion percentage over expected. He's 26th in EPA. He's 25th in QBR. Dak Prescott has been a bottom third of the league quarterback this year. So it's messy in Dallas. It is messy. All right, let me have a sip of my sexual chocolate. Have a sip of your drink. Again, what are you drinking tonight? And as I sit here, don't forget to help the show. Don't forget to help yours truly. You can do a couple things. Doesn't cost you any money. Doesn't take you much time. I think many of you know them already. But click that thumbs up on the YouTube channel as you watch this episode, as you watch this program, because more clicks on that thumbs up means more eyeballs. We try to beat this algorithm into submission. So don't forget to like. Don't forget to throw a comment in. Let me know what you're drinking. Let me know how you feel about the Cowboys, Deshaun Watson. Throw a comment in and subscribe. We have hit our goal on the Nick Cattles channel of 4,500 subscribers. The next goal is 5K. So don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you listen to Spotify, Apple Pods, you can get the show there as well. And you could, of course, rate and review. All right, before we get to story number 3, got another super chat here that I want to pull up. And this is from my guy, Chris Chapman. Nick, there might be a Dallas radio sports opening soon. Dallas, huh? Yeah, but then you got to go work for Jerry. You got to go work for Jerry and deal with that. I mean, that was embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for Jerry, and it's a really tough situation those radio guys were put in down there, because now, when the owner comes out and says, you work for me, I'll just go out and find somebody who can ask the questions that I want them to ask. Man, that makes you look like an idiot, and no fault of the radio hosts. So, did Jerry do it for PR? I know some people said he did. I don't know how that helps you. Thanks, Chris, for the 10, by the way, and that super chat. All right, let's get to story number 3. Tua Tagovailoa. Mike McDaniel this week told us that Tua is expected back this year. So the expectation is for Tagovailoa to start at some point during the season for the Dolphins. And one question that I have, first and foremost, is how many specialists were involved in this decision? Now, McDaniel did say that Tua has to go through the process. He's got to get through that protocol. And when he finishes up the protocol, he still has tests that he has to get through. But McDaniel sounded pretty confident that Tua is going to continue to play and that he will play this year. So how many specialists were involved? I know that they said that he went to one consultant. I'm sure there were other doctors involved. I'm sure that the Dolphins doctors are obviously involved. But how many specialists did Tua go see? Did he go see more than one specialist? Did he go out and see more than one consultant? Or is this just, one guy telling him you're good to go? I always ask that question when we talk about concussions in the NFL. I always want to know, how many doctors did that football player go see? How many specialists did that football player go see? How many people that were not linked with the football program itself did that person talk to about their health and their head and their concussion history? So how many people were involved in this process? I'd love to know that answer. And it's the doctor's decision to make. I mean, the doctor needs to tell Tua, you're done. And as long as the doctor tells him that he can continue to play football, we know that football is all that Tua knows. So I'm not surprised whatsoever that Tua is going to come back and play football, because it's the game that he loves. He's got tens of millions of dollars riding on it. And he really doesn't know anything else, right? I mean, he's still in his 20s. He wants to continue his career. But I will say this, and I don't know how many of you agree with this. I don't know how many of you will feel this. Let me know. Throw a comment in. I can't be the only one feeling like this. Every single solitary future snap that Tua takes is going to be horrifying for me to watch, because I just can't help but feel that things can get worse. And I am not hoping they get worse, obviously. I hope the young man continues to be able to play football. I hope his life is not, seriously impacted in a terrible way because he decides to come back. But every time this guy takes a snap, you got to hold your breath. Every time he drops back to pass, every time Tua is standing in the pocket, how do you not be concerned? It's like a scary movie. You know something's going to come around the corner. And I hope it doesn't come around the corner. But my freaking goodness, I am concerned for the young man. And it's not my call. It's his call. If he wants to continue to make a living and play football, and the doctors tell him that he can continue to play football, then by all means, he's going to go play football. But every time I watch this guy, it was already in the back of my mind. I was already concerned watching him over the last couple of years, since the last couple of concussions we saw, since the last time he did the fencing position. Now, after you saw it again, especially with the kind of hit that he took, I'm horrified to watch him play football. And I hope nothing goes wrong. I hope nothing tragic happens. I hope his life, again, off the field is not impacted. If I were his family member, I would certainly tell him that in my opinion, I would not want him to play again, but it's his decision. It's his right to make the decision. If the doctors tell him he's good to go, and it sounds like he's going to return. And I still have the same concerns I've had about Tua since, the first time he walked into the league, and not just because of concussions, but the overall injury history of Tua. It's rough, man. I mean, he's got a long injury history, hip, ankle, head. He's not a big dude. We know that, right? He's not a big guy. And then in the offseason, he lost even more weight. He showed up to camp looking thinner, and he wasn't big to begin with. So his size, his frame, he's not super athletic. He's not great at running away from pressure. So I don't know if Mike McDaniel changes his play calling, but man, oh man, my goodness. Jan jumps in, says, I agree. It is really frightening. I couldn't imagine being a Dolphins fan when he comes back. Watching every single snap with that guy and holding my breath every single time he drops back to throw a football. Terry says she agrees with Jan. A lot of money, but his life is more valuable. Let's hope he's all right. All right, let's get to story number 2. After I take a sip of my sexual chocolate, again from Crew Brew Brewery, a chocolate stout, 6.2 ABV. Let me know if you've ever had this. It's in Raynham, Mass. All right, story number 2. Russell Wilson. Who thought we'd be talking about Russell Wilson getting first-team reps this week? It's interesting timing. Justin Fields has not been great by any stretch, but the Steelers are 4-2, and I have serious questions of whether or not Wilson is better than Fields. And it's not because Fields is great, but Russell Wilson has not looked good for a number of years. I mean, one of the biggest issues with Wilson is that he takes a ton of sacks. He took a ton of sacks when Seattle was winning. He loves taking sacks, holding on to the football and holding on and holding on and holding on and scrambling around and taking a sack. There's nothing more that Russell Wilson loves than taking sacks on a football field. And here's the scary proposition. The Steelers, they give up the 5th highest pressure rate in football. So you mix Russell Wilson's penchant for taking sacks with a team that's been giving up pressure, and you think about Justin Fields' athletic ability, and they're still giving up some pressure. That's a dangerous combination. I mean, let's think about it this way. Sean Payton, when he had Russell Wilson in Denver, Sean Payton decided to eat $85 million in dead cap money. I'll say it again. $85 million in dead cap money. That's what Denver was willing to choke down to cut Russell Wilson. I mean, how much does that tell you? Sean Payton is known as a quarterback guru, right? If anybody can get something out of Russell Wilson, it would be Sean Payton. We all talked about it when Wilson went to Denver, and Wilson was so bad, and Sean Payton had zero hope, that he told team ownership that it was in the best interest of the football team to eat $85 million in dead cap money over the next couple of years. That's how bad Sean Payton thinks Russell Wilson is. So I wouldn't be rushing to Russell Wilson. You have to wonder, did Wilson go to Pittsburgh because he was told he was going to start? The injury kept him from starting. And now that he's healthier, Wilson saying, hey, it's my time. It's my time. Put me on the field. And it's not just about Wilson's play. Wilson's leadership, quote unquote, has rubbed people the wrong way. He had many issues in Seattle almost right out of the gates. There were stories coming out about Wilson and the fact that he didn't necessarily get along with all of his teammates. He thinks very highly of himself, which I would say most, if not all, NFL players think very highly of themselves. But in a league where guys think very highly of themselves, Russell Wilson is seen at being either near or at the top of the mountain of guys that feel great about themselves. And I heard stories about Russell Wilson when he went to Denver. I heard how he showed up in his own, he showed up in his truck, and, he got out of the truck like he owned the place. And I heard from some people in Denver that immediately, Russell Wilson rubbed his teammates the wrong way, and they all looked at him and said, oh boy, this is what we got to go through. This is who we've got to deal with. So Wilson has a history of rubbing people the wrong way in that locker room. And now his play on the field has been borderline brutal for about 3 or 4 years. So it's a very interesting decision by Mike Tomlin. And Justin Fields, at least, if Fields is not, great as a quarterback, at least Fields brings a different dynamic with his legs. So you got the different dynamic with his legs. He can extend plays. You can call different types of plays in the run game with Fields. Now you're going away from that and going to Wilson. And Wilson has absolutely lost a step, if not a step and a half athletically. And again, you look at the sack problems. Interesting decision by the Steelers. But Tomlin, I think you got to give Mike Tomlin the benefit of the doubt because his track record is what it is. He finds ways to win in the regular season. And that Steelers team has been defense first almost, every single freaking year of the past who knows how long. Who knows how long. William Sprague, I am drinking watered down urine. That doesn't sound good. What are you drinking? Domestic? Is that what we're doing? I don't like the sound of that. Michael Klemenko on Facebook makes 0 sense for Pittsburgh to switch quarterbacks right now, especially after coming off a win last week. I'm telling you, my conspiracy theory, my tinfoil cap, as I put it on, my tinfoil cap is that the Steelers told Russell Wilson he's going to be the starting quarterback. And he made the decision to go to Pittsburgh because they said, you're going to play. Now, I don't know if they did, but that's what it feels like. All right, don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. We're going to get to story number 1, but don't forget to do those couple of things on YouTube. Also, Facebook. I see a couple Facebook likes. You can like us over there. You can like us on Twitter as you watch. So don't forget to like the podcast. Don't forget to throw your comments in so we can beat the bag out of this algorithm at YouTube. So don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. We are now over 4,500 subscribers. The next goal is 5,000. So like, comment, subscribe, and Apple Pod, Spotify, my friends over there, rate and review. All right, we got to finish up with story number 1. I think many of you know what story number 1 is going to be. The new wide receivers with their fancy, nice new uniforms, the new wide receivers that are in New York/New Jersey and Buffalo. Let's start with Davante Adams going to the Jets. Anybody surprised by this? You surprised? I'm not. I'm not surprised whatsoever. As soon as Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets, there was talk about Adams going to the Jets. So Adams ends up with the Jets. Now, the fact that Vegas didn't pay any of the contract, that's a loss in a vacuum for the Jets, right? You would think that if you're going to acquire Davante Adams, the Raiders were going to have to pay at least some of that big-time contract, the money that was left over. Well, that wasn't the case. The Jets took the entire contract. So in a vacuum, that's a miss. That's a loss on the Jets' part. The conditional second-round pick is okay. At first, when I saw it, kind of was thinking second about it. But then when you looked at the conditions after Adam Schefter reported the conditions aren't bad because that third-round pick becomes a second-round pick if Adams is either a first or second team All-Pro or is on the active roster for an AFC Championship game or Super Bowl. And if you're a Jets fan, if you get to the AFC Championship game or you get to a Super Bowl, then Davante Adams helped you get there, and therefore the trade is worth it. And I don't think you're freaking out about giving up a second-round pick. If Adams ends up being a first or second team All-Pro, same kind of feeling, right? Same kind of vibe. That means Adams played well, which means Rodgers played well, which means your offense very likely played well. And you would have to imagine if that offense plays well enough, they will win their fair share of football games. So the condition is not that bad. At first glance, I said, man, that's a big-time overpay. But then the conditions came out on the pick, and I said, not as big of an overpay as I thought it was. Interesting timing. I thought Rodgers and the Jets, I watched the Monday night game. I thought Rodgers and the Jets moved the football. They moved the football effectively on Monday night against the Bills. I mean, they win that game if their kicker could kick. So pretty interesting timing when the deal is done. You got Todd Downing now as the offensive coordinator. He takes over for Nathaniel Hackett, who's just been absolutely Suckville. He was terrible in Denver as the head coach. He's been awful in New York for the Jets as their OC. So they finally moved on from him, which, by the way, don't forget, that was a Robert Saleh decision before Saleh got popped. Todd Downing, they had that football moving. Talk about moving. Terry Grant moving some cash towards the Super Chat world. Thank you, Terry. My Super Chat is to celebrate that @Ryan will be watching for all of us in London. You might see Drake versus Mac. Could you imagine? So Ryan going to the game. I've never been to London. I've never been to Europe. It's on the bucket list. I was supposed to go with Kelly at some point this summer. We did not get out there. But I want to go to London. I want to go to Germany. Love to go to Italy. So have fun out there, Ryan and Terry. Again, your generosity, your help to this program, your support for the program. You're at my Patreon. You watch almost every single podcast live. Can't say enough about you. If we ever meet, which hopefully we do, I'm going to have to buy you a Diet Pepsi. All the Diet Pepsi's on me. So thank you. I will have a sip of my sexual chocolate stout from Crew Brewery for that $50 super chat. Thank you for the 50. It is much appreciated. Thank you, Terry. By the way, I didn't know how this beer was going to taste. Not because I haven't had it before. I don't like it. It's because my liver probably needs many days of recovery after going down to Virginia Beach over the last week. But we made it. Mama, I made it. 5-hour drive to finish today. And now enjoying the sexual chocolate. Thank you. Thank you, Terry. All right. Back to Davante Adams with the Jets. Was this a panic move? Was this a move out of desperation? Yes. Yes. The Jets are all in. So, of course, and Burley, I see you. Cheers, Burley. Cheers. Yeah, the Jets are all in. They're all in on this season. They're all in with Aaron Rodgers. The entire idea of getting Aaron Rodgers is so you win a Super Bowl. That's the whole point. You deal with the Rodgers drama. You deal with the passive aggressiveness. You deal with him making moves, but not really making moves. Very similar as far as some of the manipulation stuff as like LeBron James, right? LeBron's, I'm not involved with that kind of stuff. Okay, LeBron. You might not directly be involved, but of course you're involved. And so when you bring somebody in like Rodgers, the dude's going to run the team for all intents and purposes. So yes, this is a desperation / panic move. I mean, they're 2-4. If they lose this weekend, 2-5, they might be done. I wouldn't rule them out just yet, but they'll be pretty close to dead at 2-5. So yes, this is a panic move. This is a desperation move. This is a move made by a football team that has one goal in mind. They haven't got off to a great start. They had the opportunity to land one of the best receivers in football, who also happens to be friends with the quarterback that they're trying to appease and please. So yes. But this is the kind of move that you make when you're all in. So is it an overpay? Yes, it's an overpay. Taking that entire contract, it's an overpay. But the overpay, the panic desperation is understandable because the ultimate goal. And if you're trying to win the damn thing, then you make this move and you try to do everything and anything that you can to make your team better in the spot that the Jets are in. Will this make them better? We'll see. I do get a kick out of Davante Adams' hamstring miraculously making a turn for the best as soon as this trade was done. Oh, goodness. By the way, they also restructured his contract. So you'll have Rodgers and Adams, I think, in New York / New Jersey, at least through 2025. So this is at least a 2-year experiment from this point We'll see if it works out. The other trade I loved, I mean, Amari Cooper going to the Bills for a 3rd-round pick and a late-round pick swap. I love that deal for Buffalo. I mean, I love it for Buffalo. I'm a fan of Amari Cooper, and the price isn't crazy. 3rd-round pick. If you're Buffalo and you're doing it right, that 3rd-round pick should be towards the end of the 3rd round because you're hoping that the addition of Amari Cooper is going to help you finish higher in the AFC and allow you to make a deeper run in the playoffs. So I love the move by the Bills. It makes a lot of sense. They need a wide receiver who can make some plays in the red zone. Right now, they're pretty much relying on Mac Hollins. So you bring Cooper in. He should be able to make some plays in the red zone area for Josh Allen and this offense and Coach Brady. So I love that move. I think the pick is very likely to fall to at least the mid of the 3rd round, if not the late 3rd round. And here's the best thing. You are going to get a highly motivated, I would have to imagine, a highly motivated Amari Cooper. He's on the last year of his contract. So he's playing for a deal. He's playing for his last big payday. That will motivate him. Leaving Deshaun Watson in that calamity in Cleveland, the Cleveland calamity with Deshaun Watson, just getting out of that situation should motivate Amari Cooper. He just left the world of dead in Cleveland to go to Buffalo, who has a shot to get to the playoffs, make a deep run in the playoffs, and maybe even get to the damn Super Bowl if they can figure some things out. So I'm sure Cooper, he jumped out of bed when this deal was made. And he helps Josh Allen's ceiling, 100%. Charlie, $10 super chat. Thank you for the 10, Charlie. Rodgers, Adams should have stayed in Green Bay years ago. Jets are a cursed franchise and need way more than 2 aging superstars to even sniff the Super Bowl. It feels that way, but I'm not going to write him off. You know, Rodgers is talented. He's still got enough talent. Adams still has enough talent, but banking on guys who, you know, are in their 30s. Rodgers is, I think, 40 at this point. It's obviously a gamble. But you got to ask yourself this question, Charlie. What else would the Jets do, right? Now, they could try to draft and develop. They try to do that. That path didn't work out. That failed miserably with Zach Wilson. So it sort of kind of worked with Mark Sanchez. But, like, what do you do if you're the Jets? And going after Rodgers because they are a team that's been desperate for a long time, pretty much forever. You know, for that team and that spot, it makes sense. Do I think they're the favorites? Hell no. Absolutely freaking not. But this is what you do. When you go for it, when you're all in, you go for it. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You fail? Yeah, that's the worst that can happen. And then you got to pretty much reset everything in a couple of years. But, you know, the fastest way to compete here is bringing Adams in to join Rodgers, because it's obvious they did not quite have enough offensively to the liking of King Aaron. So you do what you got to do. I got to do what I got to do. Thanks for the 10, Charlie. Once again, the super chat. Help us out here, folks. My Sexual Chocolate Stout from Brew Crew Brewery. It's a fantastic beer. It's an even better name. So I'll have another drink for you. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. Those things don't cost you any money. They cost you very little time, but they help this program an awful lot. Spread the word that I'm doing an NFL podcast. My friends in Virginia Beach, my friends in Sacramento, of course, all my New England family, spread the word. We're doing an NFL podcast every Thursday night at 7 p.m. live on YouTube. We also hit up on Twitter and Facebook. We sit back, we talk football, and we drink beer. Well, some of us drink beer. Others drink Merlot, like Chris. Others drink Diet Pepsi, like Terry. We don't judge here. It's a party. You're welcome into the bar, no matter what you drink. All right, I'm going to head out. I'm going to go have some dinner. Enjoy week 7 of the NFL season. Great college football on Saturday. If you're into college football, should be a great time. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for all the super chats as well. Be good, my friends. Until next Thursday night at 7 p.m.